All right, thank you. I see Jim, Amy Murphy Carroll, thank you, Paul Foley,
Yep.
Penny, Bill Walbert, all present. Paul Foley, like I said, I'll call in a little bit later. I think Mike Rowe will call in a little later.
No, Bill, I'm on. Bill,
Who
I'm
is?
on. Paul Foley is on,
I know you're on.
but you keep saying I'm gonna call in later.
I said Paul Foley. Foley and Foley sound very
Oh,
similar.
Tully. Oh, it's the echo in the room. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We'll remember that for the next building committee. Make sure that we don't. do two Pauls.
No, yeah,
I
let's
think
keep
it's
them.
something we can all agree on. No two Pauls, never again. Our new chief, I'm going to congratulate.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
great news. Andrew, you know, we can get that or deputy chief, congratulations to your promotion as well. Man. Yeah, good. Town is in very good hands. Nothing to do with you, is there, Joe?
Nothing there.
All right, well, congratulations.
Is there a new, is there a new Andrew Wall?
No, same one.
No, is there someone else?
Did someone else?
No, not yet.
Oh, no, yeah. Now we have
Okay. Stuart.
Good morning.
Brian, let's see you out there.
Morning.
Welcome. Eugene, how are you, sir? He's collecting the audios coming in right now. Thank you. So we have the typical cast of characters on. Okay, call the meeting to order. Oh, Mike, congratulations, Mike Morrow's here as well. Put that down. Matt Paul Foley.
Oh, Tully.
Oh, Colin.
That's
Tully just showed up.
Tully Foley.
The full house.
What, Paul? All right, good. You got a full house tonight. Were there any public comments that came in, Joe?
No public
All
comment.
right. The meeting minutes, did everyone get the minutes? Have a
Yes,
chance to review them?
Yep.
Improvements, corrections, Penny, you're usually one to find something in here. Oh, good, okay, if they're good with Penny, they're probably good with the rest of us. Vote to approve the minutes, all in favor? Thank you.
I,
All right, let's go right into the update from Brian Hughes, is that fair?
That'll be fine. I can give you a quick update. We have all of our consultants under contract. They're all working currently on a design development submission. The consultants that we have actively working on it right now is Kama Interior Designers out of New Haven. We have Linden Landscape Architects out of Weathersfield doing site planning and landscape architecture. We have McCord Engineering out of Wilton doing civil engineering. Suzak Associates out of Avon are doing structural engineering. And Kohler Ronan Consulting Engineers out of Danbury are doing all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and integrated technology. So
Are
those,
these subcontractors you've worked with before, Brian?
all of them. McCord out of Wilton is the civil engineer who did the EMS facility with us. That's the only experience I've had with McCord, but I brought him on because of his knowledge of the site and his knowledge of the EMS construction and knowledge of New Canaan. All of the other ones we've had multiple projects with and multiple police projects with.
McCord is good. He's local and he's known by all the people in town, the town offices.
The town has used them before. We've contacted them.
So I have given our all of our consultants the date of January 16th for a design development submission. And originally that date was going to be the end of December, but we have obviously had holidays that interrupted that. I also had some personal festivities that we had to take care of. So pretty much December, the end of December, not a lot had been accomplished just because of holidays, and some offices were even closed between the holidays. So when we got back to the office after New Year's, that's when I established a January 16th date, get everybody organized and work toward a final design development submission. And what also is kind of dovetailed with that is we have scheduled on January 17th, a New Canaan pre-permit approval meeting with the town and town planning staff to sit with them. It's going to be our office, it's going to be Linden Landscape Architects, and it's going to be McCord Engineering is going to sit with the town and walk through with the town all of the required permitting and requirements that the town has for approvals. So we can get all of that understood and lined up and start to look at target dates when we can put submissions into the town and get on their approval process for planning and zoning, for instance, for all town land use approvals. So that's happening on the 17th at 2 o'clock. And that kind of dovetails with another collection point for information that we're going forward. The other thing that we're working kind of on the side is Joe has sent me information about a potential site. I think it's the leaf pile site that we're talking about. It's been referred to test fit a firing range. So we're doing that kind of in parallel with the work that we're doing at 174 South Avenue. So it's our intent to collect information the 16th and the 17th, compile a design development set that we can give over to Gene and to SLAM, so they can start to put together a cost estimate based on the development of the drawing set so far, but it will have everybody's information on it. Now, to get to design development, we've had to make some assumptions, and some assumptions now have to go back to the police department for verification. So we want to schedule meetings toward the end of January to sit back with the police department and go over our assumptions to make sure that everything is good as far as their interests and concerns. We need to have meetings with them to go over casework, for instance, a design of all the cabinetry and casework designs. We want to have meetings with the police department to go over all their intended locations for cameras, which doors are access control doors, which areas have intercoms and recording capabilities. So I need to schedule with the new chief, congratulations, on who that would be and who on their side they'd like at the meeting. Obviously, we can make those meeting dates known to the building committee if there's anybody else that wants to attend those, but we're going to go back and gather more information from the police department. We need to know more information, such as during the renovation, is the radio system going to be operating or not within the building? Just some simple questions that we need to make sure we're all on the same page and understanding what still needs to operate and what is going to be moved out for the contractors. So it's a brief update, but if there are any other specific questions, Bill, I'm here to answer any questions anybody has.
Well, certainly on the radio system, that was something that been talked about, a lot going in, and I got to believe from a cost perspective, which obviously the building committee cares an awful lot about. I got to believe construction will be more difficult with the radio system going, but there were discussions about outsourcing it to other departments. What is the status of that?
We talked with our radio vendor. They've looked at the new location on Locust Avenue. They're fully confident that we could operate there with our radio system. The only thing that they would need to leave live at 174 South Avenue is there's a small antenna that needs temporary construction power. If it goes down for a period of time, that's fine. There's just a backup antenna that resides on the top of the building there. So it's something that they can work around during construction. If they would just run temporary power to it, that's all that we need. But the brains and the components of the radio system will be relocated to either Locust Avenue or on another site, another permanent site for that work. But we've already met with the vendor. We've gotten estimates. We've gotten estimates to move the 911 system as well. That's going that heavy lift, because that deals with the state and the state's vendor to move that stuff, but we were already in the process of doing that.
Penny, you had a question?
Oh, I just wanted to know what level we were at with Kama Interiors, because I think the building committee wants to be involved with the level of finishes that's included in terms of when we start doing the, cost estimates and everything. I know there are a lot of new materials we're working with at the high school now that are easier to maintain. And so I just wanted to get an update on really where we were and make certain that the building committee got a chance to have an input.
That's a good point, because as I said, design development, we're gonna make some assumptions, and the assumptions are on paper right now. So that's what we're gonna put in front of the building committee. And if we want to organize another meeting to go over that for specific interest in interiors, Camera would be happy to do that. And we can outline for you what our initial decision-making was. And if that changes, that's great. If we're gonna make it something better, that's great. So we need to kind of know what the interest level is on the committee as to what specific interests they might have, and we'll coordinate a meeting to go over all that. If it's-
I'll speak to the committee that I think we do have an interest, and lots of hands make for light work. I think as a committee, we're interested in dealing with most of your subcontractors and seeing where we are. So I think each meeting, whether it's an interiors meeting, and then there'll be a landscape meeting, what assumptions are made there and things like that. Won't necessarily be the same people from the building committee at each meeting, but I think if we can publicize those dates, we can certainly get a couple building committee members there that can report back to us or raise some issues if they have any. Stuart, I assume you would want to be, if you're around to see some of this stuff. I know Tom Turrentine as well, even though he's not a voting member, may want to be involved with a couple, meetings. Again, we're not here to necessarily drive the process. We're here to represent the people, to make sure that we can look them all in the eye and report back to them what's going on.
Yeah, and maybe smaller meetings is the best format. I don't know if this type of meeting is the best format, but if we put together a schedule of dates and times and see that people can coordinate, and we can give each of those meetings a topic, so they know what the discussion points would be at each meeting, such as casework, if there's somebody interested in cabinetry, or what the casework detailing would be, that's going to be the topic of a meeting. So we can make it.
We label them as working staff meetings, if you will, that just happen to be attended by a couple people from the building committee. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call them official building committee meetings if that's appropriate. Is that appropriate like that, Penny?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
And obviously, Brian, you've got the Emergency Operations Center and the CERT closet. Obviously, they're tiny items, but you want to be sure to include Russ Kimes as well.
Excellent. And we want to make sure everybody's interests are covered. In addition to what our consultants are asking for, we'll reach out and probably go through Joe to make him aware of these meeting dates. I don't want to leave anybody out. If there's an interest, maybe he can and notify the whole committee of what the dates are and what the topics are.
Yeah, Brian, I think that'll be the easiest way to do it, right? You let Joe know, Joe will let me know, I'll let the committee know, and I can coordinate just to make sure everyone was at least made aware, keep track of who is planning to show up. I don't want to put that on Joe, but that way you have one point of contact, and I'll be the point of contact for the building committee, and we can make sure that all interested parties are made aware and that we're covering all the situations we cover.
You can also get to know all the other consultants that way too, because they'll be at those meetings, and it won't just be my face.
So, and one other, just when you do it, I mean, when they come, I'd be very interested in hearing what they're doing to make the building, more energy efficient. We're not going for any kind of LEED certification, but we do certainly want to have, sort of the most efficient equipment that's durable in there. I don't know what the trade-offs are. I know we're putting in condensing boilers now
Mhm.
at the schools.
Same
So,
approach. We did receive narratives from Colaronen on all of their mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection. So we have those in narrative form. So if anybody's interested in reading about all of the intended systems, they are in written format in addition to drawings.
Do we have any particular concerns with our meeting with the town planning staff about the 17th? Or I know it's a long checklist and I know there's no way to necessarily predict, but as an experienced person in these matters, Joe, what do you got to tell us?
So, I mean, it's really just to decide the path forward and decide the meeting dates and the level of the charge need to be developed at that time. There will be requirements for special permits, obviously. The site is existing non-conforming now, so there'll be some refreshments of previous special permits if they existed or brand new ones. So that's really the heavy lifting.
And as these go through the town bodies, the planning bodies and, meetings for special permits and things like that, who typically represents the police building? Or building committee members, I presume are expected to be there and present, or do we let the people that actually know what they're talking about present?
I think you let the consultants present,
Okay.
but you just have a presence there, let everyone know that's important, just in case any typical, questions come up that are more targeted towards you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Joe, it's Paul. I have a question on the temporary location. Do we need different permits for there as well? Is that part of this process, or is that?
We still need to get Brian on board for basically
Okay.
design temporary space as well. With that,
Okay.
we'll require some permits. I don't think that'll be as heavy lifting,
Right.
It's just kind of a change in use over there.
Okay.
But I can't imagine we would find any opposition.
Any other, go ahead, Jim. Any other questions?
I have a
I'd like
question
to introduce Gene Jordan. Go ahead, Tom.
quickly, sorry. Do we have an update, Brian, on the survey being done on the parking lot and the property lines and all that?
We have been getting a couple of submissions from the surveyor. Our site planning consultant is still asking for more information for the survey. So I had a conversation with Joe just this morning on that. We don't have all the information as of today that we're requesting, and it's, I would say 80 to 90% of it is there. But the part that is not there right now is the lower parking lot. So that's still something that's lagging.
So will this be discussed at the site planning meeting on whenever that is?
Yes, the 17th at 2 o'clock.
It'll be discussed, but I don't think it'll be solved at that meeting. I mean, because we still have to put some pen to paper on the survey once it's completed in the site circulation, so it won't be resolved at that meeting.
I'm particularly, as you know, concerned about the north side of the building. I know the lower parking lot's an issue too, but I just want to make sure we've got some resolution on the north side egress part, which is still a sort of a pinch point.
Still a work in progress.
Thank you.
And where are we on the height of the workout room? And the equipment and that study that's going forward?
As far as what we have, it's 9 feet at the fitness center ceiling. We're providing 9 feet.
Right, but I understood that we had some equipment where that was gonna not be sufficient and that we might have to do something different in part of that. And so I just want to make sure that we understand where we are with that issue.
It's still conversation between us and the police department.
Brian, when you say 9 feet, you mean 9 feet at its lowest point in the room?
Correct.
So between rafters, you could get higher than that, but at the lowest point in the room will be 9 feet.
Correct.
And that's throughout the entire room?
That is correct.
That's, John, do you think that's really sufficient? Because I kind of don't.
Well, there was talk before about a compromise of maybe taking out a certain portion of that. I assume that's still being looked at as well, right? Maybe taking a portion where the taller machines are, taking out another 2 feet down, which could work as well. I assume that's another thing that's still on the table. Is that fair, Brian?
It is. We've also have other police department fitness centers at 9 feet that have proven to be satisfactory. So I don't know what the equipment is that is going in there that's needing more than that. So that's still, if they're intending for equipment that's needing more than 9 feet, I don't have that information yet. I'm just going off of what we've done in other locations at 9 feet is adequate.
So Brian, is there one where, I mean, we've done field trips in the past. Is there one, if this is an issue of concern continuing, with that, people could go look at it, get an idea?
There are examples for that, yes.
I would really suggest we do that because to me, 9 feet just is tight. You get on a Peloton and you do some weights in it and you do pull-ups on another piece of equipment. It just gets right at that 9 foot level. And also airflow, is there enough air handling in there, Brian?
Yes, sir.
To move air in a gym is, it's more than necessary, obviously.
Understood.
Can I ask, given
I'm
the
sorry,
size,
I'm sorry, and then just to finish up, and we talked about putting windows in on that bearing wall. Is that still in the process of being hashed out? So that it's not just one big dark room, you know what I mean?
You're still talking about the gym?
In the hallway. Yeah, I'm just talking about the gym. Yeah.
Well, I don't know 100% that got communicated to Brian, but the idea of Paul's suggestion was that we just open some windows in that wall to the main hall for light and just visibility and make it less of a contained, give it a
Right.
better feel.
Okay, I can
I
look.
don't
at
think,
that.
I'm not sure Brian had that requirement.
No, that's
Okay. I was thinking more ceiling to floor kind of windows, more of a modern look to it than just a couple of windows thrown in.
can I ask a question?
Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Paul, I interrupted. So we have, our police force is what, 47 people? How many people do we anticipate at any point in time really being using this simultaneously? And Paul, I understand, like, ideally you would do a huge amount of a height, but in terms of functionality and the number of folks in there, I mean, it seems like if we can, as best we can do, work with what we have without, incurring incredibly additional expenses. And I just in terms of, if anything we learned in the pandemic, you can work with a lot of situations. And, we're not talking about having 20 people in there at the same time, probably a couple people at a time maximum. It just seems like, though I know in a perfect world, you might do it differently, but, let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good. I don't see this like a football team all working out there at the same time. And I don't know how heavily this facility will be used. I mean, it will be used, but by maybe 1 or 2 folks at a time, I'm guessing. Is that fair? Is that how these are generally used in police?
Generally, yeah, it's not something that's used by 20 people at one time. So it is smaller numbers, but it's more frequent use. It's throughout the day and the night. And it does get frequent use, but not like a typical gym, or like you said, a team atmosphere where you have 20 people. It would be 2, 3, 4, 5 people perhaps working out at a time, spread out throughout the entire day.
Yeah, so.
I think it would make sense just to understand the equipment that you're going to use there. As Paul was saying, I mean, we're talking, is it like more like a fitness center? Is it more like powerlifting with rubberized mats, rubberized weights, cages, squat racks? I mean, it would, I think, form our decision here.
A good point. Very good point.
Do we know what equipment's going to be in the room yet?
What the room will allow.
But to Mike's point, all of the above, we do have fitness equipment, we do have squat racks, we do have free weights, we do have all those elements of a gym. So we're gonna have to try to put all that in there, and we're gonna have to see what kind of space we have, and that will dictate the equipment, but we're gonna use the space as efficiently as possible and get the best well-rounded equipment in there that we can get in there.
Would it make sense to just identify 2 or 3 of the largest pieces of equipment with the most restricted?
We can do that, sure, yeah.
And then we can establish almost a footprint of where we need a higher ceiling. If
Yeah.
if that maybe.
Yeah, we can do that, definitely.
This group doesn't have to engineer placement of equipment. I volunteer, I'll get with Brian, John, whoever else from the PD. And let's figure out what equipment and make sure we have space, and we'll look at and consider the height
Yeah.
requirement and get back next meeting.
Right.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, John. Tim.
And I just wanted to say, in terms of like providing windows to the hallway, that I thought that was an interesting idea. I have no idea how expensive it is. Everything's a trade-off, but if adding a few of those to make it a little bit more modern, to have a good feel in there, I thought it was an interesting idea. But
I agree, it's a
yeah.
good idea.
but we could just, so you'd have to tell us what the trade-offs are on that.
Right. I can take a look at that with a structural engineer.
Great.
Right. And I, again, we're spending a lot of money here and we want to spend it correctly and efficiently. But I don't want to have an adequate facility. I want a great facility. That's all.
To go with our great police commission.
Well, of course. Come on.
Gene,
So,
has everyone, met Gene, our owner's rep? And, welcome to the team, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Have you on board. Some of us have worked with you in the past, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with working with you in the present. So you've always done a great job for us, and welcome aboard. You've been very involved in the process for construction manager. And why don't you you and Joe give us an update on what's going on there?
Sure. Joe, you want me to go?
That'd be great.
Okay, so we've issued we'll be calling it RFQ and P, which is a qualifications and proposal package, went out on the street on Monday, 1/9. And we have received, so we've solicited 6 construction manager firms that were pre-selected by the committee. They have all now responded in the affirmative that they will participate in the process. So that was encouraging. We have a site walkthrough with everybody set for 1/19 at 10 o'clock. And will give everybody an opportunity to kind of walk the site, see what's going on, ask questions. The deadline for questions will be the next day on 1/20. The actual proposals are due on the 27th of January at 11 a.m. and they're all going to go to Joe. We'll have hard copies. I think there were 6 hard copies and an electronic copy. We've asked that the fee portion of the proposal be a separate sealed envelope so that we can evaluate the qualifications first. From the qualifications, the intent is to shortlist to no more than 4 to an interview. So the interviews are set for on February 15th. We'll have to set up a time and schedule for that once we shortlist, and we have an interview format that we've issued to the committee for review, which basically outlines what we expect them to discuss during the interview. For the most part, we give them some flexibility on some ad lib stuff that they want to talk about, but mainly we're setting the agenda for the interview. So after the interview, we would score them on a QBS scoring form, a rubric, and then we would open up the fee envelope at that point and use that as a weighted factor, depending on how the committee wants to weigh the fee, to determine the highest score, which would basically determine the winner. We would intend to make a selection on 2/16 to have a CM on board that following day, give them a week to execute the contract. So before the end of February, we should have everything in line. The RFP is really intending to let them know that they're going to hit the ground running with an estimate, so that we can run that in parallel with what we're doing, so that we can have a chance to have their input on the cost of the work, and we can reconcile it with our estimating team to make sure that we're both in agreement on what we believe the projected cost for the project would be. That's kind of the update on that. So far, so good.
Hey, Gene, are you seeing any moderation in, or is it too early to tell, construction costs, any backing up in inflation, any specific trades that are loosening up?
It is a little early to tell. There are good signs that it is loosening up. We're still seeing a lot of issues on the equipment side, especially electrical gear equipment, mechanical equipment. But most of the other stuff is freed up quite a bit. We had talked in the interview about elevators, and elevators they were like a year out. Now they're a little bit more moderate, more back into a normal range, which a little bit accelerated, like 6 months instead of a year. So that's really positive. So what's one of the things that we're going to want the construction manager to do with our involvement is really to analyze that right away, work with Brian on, do we need to do a carve out to order any gear or equipment ahead of time to kind of make sure that stuff arrives when the schedule is. Inflation, it's anyone's guess. I mean, right now it's obviously out of control. It's more so on the construction side.
6.5%, according to our friends in Washington, just reported.
Yeah. So, and in construction in particular, it doesn't follow the normal consumer inflationary index. It's a little bit higher actually. So that's something that we're going to have to pay close attention to and find solutions to kind of mitigate some of that as best we can. But the trend is certainly trending back down to pre-COVID levels. We're certainly not there yet, but at least it's starting to trend down.
And is it a positive sign that everyone you reached out to is interested in bidding?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And Gene, I know this may be way too early, but just on a back of the envelope, big stroke, when do you suppose vacating the building might occur? Would that be some sort of time frame? Would be when?
I think we were thinking the fall, but what we were almost more realistically looking at to better solve the supply chain issues was maybe the spring of 2024. And we've mapped out a schedule that I can share with you guys that kind of lays that out. And that's what we want the CM's involvement. I think the committee would like to start as soon as possible, but we don't want to do a ready, fire, aim. We want to be able to make sure that when we start, we have everything we need in place before we start. So earliest would be October-ish. I think my initial feeling is we may be better off waiting until spring.
But all the documents right now show October. The school will be vacating in June, the 39 Locust. We have about 12 weeks to build out Locust Avenue and have it ready for the police station. So it's still our goal to be moved over. Whether we start or not, that might be a secondary question.
We have the space, and want to make sure that space is finished completely before they move over there. The building committee is not involved with a lot of the cross the T's, dot the I's in that regard, obviously, but obviously we're here to support if there's anything we can do to help with that transition, which is really a major pain in the neck for you guys, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're here to help if we can.
And that's probably easier if the construction crews aren't waiting to get working while we're moving out. So if we can have a little breathing room in that regard, that'll help us out a little bit too.
So
again,
schedule and make it work.
And we do have to schedule months out, what the chief was saying about having those vendors come in, especially the state vendor to move those. So we're gonna have to do that for a month.
John, if I understood you, So if I understood you correctly, John, your feeling might be when Locust becomes available, there's no reason not to begin the process of vacating the building, even if construction doesn't start for, until January in comparison to October. It's still better to be out and be ready and settle in a new location and having the building empty and available for any contractors that want to do any kind of work.
Absolutely. As soon as
Yeah.
39 is available, we're gonna begin the process of moving out.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah, and it
Obviously.
gives us a lot of flexibility that way. What we're trying to avoid too is bidding the work in the summer, which is the worst time to bid any work. So if we can wait till September to start bidding, more contractors are looking for fall work. It's a great winter project, which is very attractive to a lot of contractors to have work during the fourth and first quarters of the year. So that's a great opportunity to have them jump in. Maybe it's not October, maybe it's November, but they can certainly start demolition. They can certainly start some of the interior renovations. So there's a lot of stuff that's very attractive to subcontractors. So we want to take advantage of that.
Okay.
And
Gene, in terms of the construction, will the goal be basically to build out the new addition, do the demolition, then build out the new addition and then close it in? And then is there a time period? I know when we were pouring the slab at Saks, there were concerns that we not do it too late in the year.
Yeah,
So
again,
how does that sort of play out with the schedule you're thinking about?
well, if the benefit of the winter construction is that they can work inside. They may decide to postpone the demolition or maybe postpone the new foundation work until the spring, just because to avoid winter conditions and the expense of temporary heat and things like that that are required to keep that foundation from freezing. So that they may decide to go and do the renovation work inside before they tackle the actual addition themselves. So that's something, the means and methods. And we would certainly, my guess is if I was doing this, I would get in there as fast as I could, and I would do the renovation work. And if the opportunity allowed, I would do the addition as the weather permitted. It's a little bit more risky to do it in December, January, February, because it's just such a high propensity for frost in the ground
Right.
and all that.
Sorry.
Bill, I know this is the tail wagging the dog, but following our last meeting back in December, I did go down through the 54 properties owned by the town of McKean and identified 6 locations for the auxiliary vehicles, those that are being held by the police for legal purposes, and those that are trailers and all. And I submitted that to Chief DeFederico, and it's just now, that's got to be thrown into the hopper someplace over the course of the next 6, 7, 8 months as we begin to consider vacating the building.
well, with Leon down in Darien, I'm sure, maybe right in the middle of their football field, he can park some of our battery,
Just the ones that are leaking oil.
yeah.
No, we'll, but Stuart's correct. We are at critical mass with stored vehicles and stored large items like that, and we need a place to put them during construction.
We
We need the other town agencies, public works, to cooperate with us a little bit. I know they don't want to give up.
Because let's face it, when we decided to keep this police station at its current location, is the first caveat. It's a tight space. It's not an ideal amount of land.
Yeah.
And now's the opportunity at the time to come up with something that's, for the next 20 years regarding vehicle storage and things like that. It's been sort of a.
And we'll do our due diligence to try to offload as much of it as we can, but unfortunately we're.
Yeah, and that's something is a building committee, I think we can certainly help with town bodies in that regard. If you want us to, because I think you're absolutely right. It's going to take cooperation from others in the town, and you may need some people running, helping you run a little interference, because this isn't just about construction, though of course that's the first need, but beyond that, where we're going to need real longer term solution.
Great.
Chief, do you have the list? Do you need any help with any of the town bodies and any of the building committee people to work with whoever might be in charge of those properties to make them available?
I just need a place to put the cars, and somebody tell me where to put them, and I'll get the records on site today if I get the green light. I just needed a place to put 10 vehicles.
Hey, Stuart, in your list, are any of the train parking lots included in that? And just, I continue to commute and you don't see much of Talmadge Hill yet at all. I
We
mean,
can't
so
really use-
it just
we can't
seems like
really use
such a-
commuter lots
such a-
for these things. We need
I'm sorry.
something. We can't really use a commuter lot for these sorts of things. They don't need high security, but they need some level of not having public access. More ideal location would be someplace that's out of the public view, that the public doesn't come in and interfere with the storage of these items.
okay.
So from a building committee perspective, a couple of things as we decide how we're going to operate as such. So the interviews for construction manager are on February 15th. You've already picked our subcommittee for people that will be doing that. But if anyone else on the building committee wants to volunteer, obviously the more the merrier. The town planning staff meeting on January 17th. If there's I will be out of town, but if there is a building committee person that wants to just be a fly on the wall, just let me or Joe know. The walkthrough on the 19th, again, I'll still be out of town. I would think that, frankly, I'd be very interested in, taking a walkthrough. You never know what you're going to pick up with the construction managers. I know it's not our meeting, we're not really shouldn't be saying anything, let the pros deal with it. But if I was a building committee member and I was in town, I might want to, be a fly on the wall for that. So is that appropriate if any building committee member wanted to be there for such a
Public walkthrough.
I'll try and sit in on, Bill, I'll try and sit in on the site meetings, Jim.
Thank you. And as far as Penny brought up with the call it the subcontractor working meetings, Brian and Joe, I guess if you don't mind making me aware of some of those dates and times so I can make the building committee members aware. And I think as an assumption, you can assume probably 1 or 2 building committee members at at some of these meetings, just to make sure that they can report back to us on what's going on, because some of these things, as Penny brought up, are likely to be some buying decisions that we might as well be made aware of now, instead of when the chairs show up, or whatever it is, and it's we wanted to cut our cost here or what have you. So better to be involved sooner rather than later. Thank you, Penny, for bringing that up.
Hey, Bill, would it be okay to just send out a list of those dates to the group of what's happening, and then because I was writing them down and I realized I wrote down some of the dates wrong. So
Yes.
just
I will
and
do
then,
that.
and then people, if they can make it, let you know, and if it makes sense, that's great. And
I'll
not
probably
to
send it
get
out
anyone
twice.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, the dates we know now, I'll send out later on today. And then there'll be another thing going out, with some of the working, some other working meetings as well.
We'll send out the RFQ. On page 3 of the RFQ is a schedule for all the CMs stuff. So that's everything that's been scheduled so far, with the exception of the planning meeting, which I think we keep it at staff, otherwise I have to notice it. But 1 or 2 people won't show up, that's fine, but I don't know that it's that beneficial.
Yeah, Joe, I'm not sure if we'd like to get a small group together to shortlist, just use your judgment on who you want to use to make that cut.
So I think the short list would be the same subgroup that was established last time. I think that was the intent of that, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll send these out electronically, as Gene mentioned, we'll get hard copies and electronic copy. So we'll send out the electronic copies, so it'll be minus the fee schedule, to everyone on the committee. And if anyone really feels, strongly about, making sure that we interview someone, they can always reach out to me.
I think for next steps, we pretty much just covered that. Is there anything else moving forward that people want to bring up now?
Yeah, Bill, if we could get a list of sites
Yes.
for a gym review and whether we do it just PD or others. But I think that should be done 3 or 4 sites where their ceilings are 9 feet, 10 feet, whatever. I think that would be just very helpful.
Yep. Yep. Yes, it's hard to visualize until you see it. You're absolutely right, Paul.
That's right. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else for the building committee?
So Brian, you'll take on that task to get us an invite? Okay.
All right, and our next meeting right now is scheduled for Jan 26th. We'll keep that, I think, for now,
Yeah.
right? We'll keep that meeting for now. So, anything else before we adjourn?
Yeah, Bill, just lastly, the training center, where do we stand on that? I mean, I just haven't seen any progress.
Yeah. Joe, one of,
So we've received a survey for the second site that we're looking at, and Brian is going to do a kind of a test fit or a siting plan over on that secondary site.
And Joe, what about planning and zoning related issues? Have those been addressed yet?
No,
no, I mean, it's premature to go, I mean,
No,
we're looking at viability and feasibility, really.
I mean, you need to get the support of all the town bodies. First, the planning zone, we know the path forward, at least for one of the sites. The other site would require some deed, that has deed restrictions, so that's a whole nother path that one would have to take, but
Joe, that was the site that I'm interested in was the second one, the latter one, which would require some deed modifications, and whether there's been any motion or movement to make that happen or not.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Having a town side meeting on the 18th for that.
We're at a town meeting on the 18th. I think that was kind of more of a big picture. So that they've been working on, you know, funding opportunities and doing all the other due diligence, the grant writer. So that might also be kind of weaved in, kind of an update of what everyone else is doing in the state as well.
Okay, yeah, so that is a big picture issue. Again, building committee is very, very interested, even if we haven't been tasked right now with, you know, facilitating the details of that. Certainly, I think as a group of people interested in police training and such, we're here as a resource to keep anything we can do to keep that ball rolling. You know, what I'm hearing is, you know, there's two paths that the work is currently going on. One, as far as the things that we control as a community and as a town, to see if there's a viable location for it. That work has been going on for a few months, and it continues. And then the other is what's going on around us, because that affects the town body's appetite for these kind, you know, for this project. And that has, and we'll be getting the. I guess you guys are doing some work on that as well, or people that do that for a living are working on that. In addition, as we talked about before, the police department, well, I'm sure as we get to more decision-making, you know, town bodies, if I was on the board of finance or the town council, I want to know what other alternatives are out there, being with Stanford or what have you, and it's just all part of making sure that the community, the town people pay for all this stuff, have the information they need to weigh in one way or the other. Anything else? All right, we'll see you guys on the 26th. Motion to adjourn. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
15 minutes, that's pretty good. Not bad. Not bad at all.